So, guys, I think we all know that the first modification that most enthusiasts do to their car is add an intake or a catback, other than some regular scheduled maintenance. However, as we've all come to understand, intakes and catbacks, when added to a car without anything else, don't necessarily add a ton of power. Which leaves me asking the question, do they really work? Today, that's what we're gonna be figuring out. We've got the guys from Fitment coming with their Honda S2000, and oh, they're actually pulling in right now. My guys,
what's up?
How you doing? So today we're gonna be doing the intake and catback on the Fitment Industries Honda S2000 that they're giving away on their channel. If you haven't already, go ahead and check out fitmentindustries.com or check out their channel on YouTube, Fitment Industries. Today, like I said, we're gonna be putting the intake and catback on their car. We're gonna be getting some baseline dyno numbers to understand exactly how much power it makes now, how much power it makes later. Plus, we're gonna show the other unmeasurable differences that a catback and an intake really do to change the driving experience for you. Let's get into driving this thing. All right, so we're gonna take this thing out for a little bit of a drive, just kind of see how the car feels, sounds, just kind of get an overall feel for the car in stock form so that we can at least have some sort of baseline to compare it to once we get done putting the new parts on the car. I love how high these cars rev, first and foremost. It feels so light. Everything is so crisp. Exactly. It's just the most comfortable car to drive around. I think that's one of the reasons these cars had so much appeal from the factory right away, is that they're just first gear, all the way up to 9,000. It's so fun. It's fun. It's just not super fast. It's not scare you quick. Yeah, right. You know. I think for me, the one thing that I wish was changed about the exhaust was the tone. Right when we're getting on it, and I don't know how well it translates through into the video, but the tone of the exhaust just sounds quiet. It sounds a little bit high pitched. You hear obviously mostly just engine noise when you get on it. I mean, for the power level that these cars have, the clutch and everything in the car does hold up relatively well to just how it's set up, which is always nice.
And it seems like it likes being driven moderately hard. Like if you try to drive it too slow or too economical, it does get kind of weird.
All right, we can get up here. We'll switch it around. We'll kind of get your reaction here.
Oh yeah.
All right, feels okay to be back in the passenger seat of this thing. We're gonna let Sean go and give it a rip.
I have no idea where I'm going. That changeover is so much fun. As somebody who's never owned a VTEC car before, it is a really fun experience. And honestly, I'm pretty impressed with how these cars drive. I kind of felt like they were going to be a little bit Miata-y, but after driving one and spending a few hours in it, I'm pretty impressed with how these cars handle even from the factory. As nice as it is to drive the car in stock form, if it just had 20% more sound, 10% more power, it'd be so much more engaging and such a more fun car and a lot more capable, I think.
All right, so we are back at the facilities here at MAP, and now what we're gonna do is actually get the car on the dyno, get some baseline numbers for you guys so that you know kind of what power this car is making as it sits. And then we're gonna go ahead and get this thing up on the lift, and we'll go ahead and start the process of actually modifying this car with, at bare minimum, a catback and an intake. We'll see where else the day gets us.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
All right, here we go. Let's get this thing on the dyno. All right, you guys, so now that we've gone and gotten our reaction of how this car actually feels and drives right now, the number one thing that we want to do is get some actual data to compare against after we put the new components on the car. So, of course, with that being said, the first thing we got to do is get Tiny, have this car strapped down, do an initial dyno run, do a handful of pulls, get some baseline numbers to figure out how much horsepower and torque this thing's actually making. And then of course, we're gonna go ahead and get busy with installing some new parts so that we can obviously measure the difference that they make from a performance standpoint. So let's get this thing on the dyno and ripper. right, you guys, so obviously we got our baseline dyno numbers. We know exactly how much power this car is making. Now it is time for the fun part. It's time for Tiny to go ahead and install the Skunk 2 catback and the AFE intake that we got for this thing. It's the fun part for me because I get to watch, but for him, this is the knuckle busting part, so we'll see how it goes.
You're gonna blink and it's gonna be done.
You're doing a good job.
This is a factory cone filter intake. This is how it makes almost 200 horsepower from factory with however many thousand miles it's got.
You could clean that and probably make like 20 more horsepower.
It's even got some pre-installed metal shavings. Oh, it's all greasy.
All right, you guys, so now that we got all the old crusty OEM stuff out of the way, it's time to go ahead and put in the brand new AFE Takeda intake. So, as I had mentioned before, this thing's got all sorts of cool air dams and funnels for the air to get into, ensuring that you're getting the coldest possible air into this beautiful Honda engine that we've got here before us. So again, now that that's out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and install this. It comes with this stuff. It's got a very interesting plastic tube over there that Tiny's holding ever so provocatively.
Very nice.
So anyways, guys, we don't want to take up too much more time. Tiny's itching to go ahead and put this in the car. I'm itching for it to be in the car, let's be honest. I just wanted to give you guys a once-over of what this thing's all about. Nothing left to do but to do it. All right, you guys, so now that the intake is fully installed, the next thing to address is the catback. Yeah, again, I mean, it's a stock catback on an old S2000, so as expected, this one's properly rusted at this point. It's got a little bit of wear on it. The car, though, is obviously in good condition standing underneath. The thing that I found interesting is this drone tube. I didn't know that that was technology that they used on these cars back then. The one thing that we're unsure of is whether or not the 3-bolt flange here is going to snap when we undo some of that. So fingers crossed that that doesn't happen. However, we do have the amazing Skunk 2 dual exit catback exhaust for this that we're gonna be putting in. It looks absolutely phenomenal, but obviously as we complained about or spoke about in our first drive around, the main thing this thing needs,
You can't hear it. You just can't hear it.
turn up the volume. We're gonna get that out of this and hopefully a few extra ponies as well. So I don't want to take up any more time. Honestly, we need to find out if these bolts are going to snap or if they're not, because otherwise it's going to be a little bit longer of a day than we expected.
I don't like that.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Don't break it. Don't break it. WD-40.
Blue wrench.
Hey Tiny, remember those nuts will be hot when you get them off. Another one. All right, guys, time to do that first coveted startup after installing a new exhaust. Do you think we have exhaust leaks? sounds so much better. Sauce it to the moon. 9 grand, let's hear it. Yes, that is exactly what this car needed. Volumetric. Woo. All right, you guys, so obviously this thing made a relatively significant jump considering, okay? It went from 195 wheel horsepower to 206 wheel horsepower, absolutely nuts. And then it went from 133 wheel torque to, what was the final highest number? 139 wheel torque as well. So for the standpoint or the question of whether or not an intake and a catback makes a difference, when we're talking about the Honda S2000, it appears that it does. Now, I don't know if you guys are necessarily going into this expecting 35 wheel horsepower jumps or anything like that necessarily. I wouldn't expect those things, but 5 to 10% increase over stock is a significant improvement considering. Now, I guess the next piece of this is that obviously the big changes that are coming into play, the things that you're gonna notice the most are just the driving differences within the car. So the next thing we're gonna do, my favorite part, get this thing out, rip it around a little bit. As you guys can tell already, oh yeah, so much better. The Skunk 2 catback sounds absolutely amazing. To my knowledge, again, I'm just gonna refer to this as to my knowledge, there's also a louder mid-pipe or a quieter mid-pipe section you could get, but I think the volume is perfect.
It really is. It locked up a little bit. Oh, dude. Perfect. Oh, it just teased me with that changeover. God, I love it. It sounds so good. It sounds so much more aggressive as it hits the changeover too. Chevelle? Oh, nice.
Wait for our friends. Sounds so good.
Oh, it really does.
All right, Sean, what do you think?
It literally feels like I'm playing Need for Speed under round 2. We have Skunk 2 exhaust on an S2000 and it sounds like this. This is ridiculous. It literally took what was already a good car and turned it into a great car. And we don't have wheels, tires, and suspension on it yet. I'm so excited to get this car to that level and just see what it does.
All right, you guys, so I guess the question that we've been trying to answer all day today is, does an intake and a catback exhaust really work? And
yes.
Obviously, with the case of the S2000, I think we can very definitely say that this made a huge difference. Not only from a performance standpoint, we saw the 5% increase, about 8 wheel horsepower more. Absolutely insane that was the difference we saw. But the driving experience has 150% changed. It's a 180-degree difference from what we had before. Obviously, the thing we had before was a bone stock S2000. Yeah. Now, we got a slightly modified S2000.
It's a little bit louder. VTEC kicks a little bit harder. It's a little bit more horsepower. It's a little bit more engaging. All around, it's just a little bit more fun, which is perfect.
I think the biggest thing to address is that most people, when they go to actually put these parts on their car, they're basing the horsepower increases that they would expect on very little information, and obviously their expectations are that it's like a 15 to 20 horsepower gain. And sadly, that's just not going to be true. So as we've shown, you know, a 5 to 10% increase is going to be huge. Obviously, as you go to make more power with this car, with a tune, with added fuel, or hell, even a turbocharger, might I say, you know, you could go ahead and expect, obviously, other things to throttle the horsepower increases you would receive. Obviously, a stock intake and stock catback would have been a throttling point for making power down the line. Obviously, it's one of the first things people do. It's one of the first things we did to this car, and I can't wait to see what comes next. So if you guys are interested in keeping up with this, you can go check out the Fitment Industries YouTube channel. Otherwise, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to leave us a comment down below with your thoughts on whether or not this even was worth the amount of work that went into making this video for you guys today.
I think it was.
Down in the comments. Yeah, I was gonna say, this is Myth Busted 101. I really feel like those guys on the Discovery Channel today. And I don't know, that's where we're probably gonna end it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.